Relatively short tenure as Veterans Minister, you've actually achieved quite a lot. The Armed Forces Covenant, the Rail Card, identification of veterans at the census, charity funding during COVID, guarantee interview scheme, the Overseas Ops Bill. Quite a lot. Well done. What's your proudest moment?
I hope that the Office of Veterans Affairs, if it is correctly empowered and correctly prioritised politically by the Prime Minister, will be a strategic step change in how this country delivers veterans. Because through that vehicle, you can pull together all the different strands, right? You've got a third sector where demand's going through the roof, but their money and everything else is going through the floor. You have a statutory provision that is only going to increase because we have a duty in this country to our veterans, and people like Simon Stevens in the NHS have ensured they looked after. So we're on this journey. If the Office of Veterans Affairs can get in that space, really organise and provide leadership in that space for what veterans need, then it's a game changer, and we will be the best country in the world to be a veteran. The trouble is that needs the political horsepower to be able to do that, to negotiate, to talk to the NHS about contracts with combat stress, to actually deliver things like the Overseas Bill by itself, which predominantly affects veterans. If they are empowered to deliver that, then it's a much easier progress. The Overseas Bill, the narratives that were developed around that were just obscene, and I felt it very personally. I mean, the individual who sent a soiled nappy to my wife was objecting to the Overseas Bill because apparently I liked torturing people. Now, clearly, but I was never really allowed to go out and advocate in that space and talk about why that was absurd. So you just need, it's all about political priorities. Every other Five Eyes country's got a cabinet minister who's responsible for veterans. We're the only one who doesn't. We were the last to have the Office of Veterans Affairs. Okay, and this needs to change. This is not my hobby horse. This is the nation's duty. The nation's duty to these people. And at some point, I've no doubt we will realise it, because the great British public, I'm afraid, give millions of pounds to this because they recognise that veterans in this country are not looked after properly. And at some point, politicians will align with that. I just want us to get there sooner rather than later. And there's a big political capital to it as well.
So you spoke about that veteran space and getting in there and having the opportunity to do that. I know it's a very complex situation, as you've just explained, but why didn't you do it? What regret have you got? And what simply could change that?
Because I was totally unsupported. And whilst my civil service team and my private office and others and the Prime Minister personally were very supportive, the government is a huge system. And in order to get things done, you need to be empowered to deliver things in your space. If you operate in a system where essentially you are kind of the face on the policy, but you have no real power over the policy levers that are pulled, it will get very difficult and very messy. And I had some very difficult conversations with my Secretary of State, for example, around the Overseas Bill, which in the end was nothing that I, or indeed, there were elements of it that will provide a degree of protection, don't get me wrong, but the whole narrative just completely ran away with itself. And that was a result of direct and deliberate decisions, that frankly were made against the advice of myself and civil servants and legal teams in the department. So
I'm going to go on to Northern Ireland legacy later, but we're undertaking a subcommittee on...
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't come. I ejected just before your committee, didn't I? I'm sorry.
Were you surprised at some of the evidence that we've received?
Yeah, it's shocking. Shocking. The female experience in the military is still nowhere near where it should be. There are females in the military who have a wonderful experience, without a shadow of a doubt, and maybe you were one of them, right? But the statistics and the sort of narrative evidence around it would lend it to being a significant problem as to how we treat women in the military. And, my eldest daughter wants to join my regiment, right? And would I be comfortable with her joining? Yes, I would, because, I could have some degree of control around that. But you read some of the experiences of our females, and it is still not good enough. And that's why I wanted to come and give evidence, because I'd listened to all the evidence sessions. I want everyone who goes into the military to have as great a time as I did, right? And to really look back on it as the most sort of promising time in their life. And it absolutely breaks my heart when I meet women or the LGBT community or foreign and Commonwealth personnel who just want to get away from it as fast as they can. That's not what the military is about.
Do you think rape trials should be heard in a civilian court?
Look, I'm not. I had a different policy position to the Secretary of State on that, but I don't want to sort of. I'm happy to declare that I had a different view, but I'm not happy to go into sort of private conversations with the Secretary of State.
I'll try another one, Johnny, if you don't mind. The chain of command hasn't come out very well in the evidence. Do you think that there is scope to remove the chain of command from military complaint system?
I think the way that complaints go through chain of command is clearly not working, right? And you need some sort of independent method of redress. But you have to be very careful around that redress, because the military is a different organisation. It's not Tesco, right? People will be asked to do stuff they don't want to do, and so they will inevitably have grievances. We need to find a balance in the middle where we are fair to people, but the needs of the military come first because of the nature of the organisation. So I don't think it's quite as black and white as is laid out, but I think there's a strong argument to be heard around an independent complaints process, which there is with the Service Complaints Ombudsman, right? But obviously it takes far too long and it is not providing good enough outcomes for our people.
All right, thanks, Johnny.